Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Captain's Table. I am your host, Captain Beanard, and topic of discussion today is going to be the Battle Hub Draft League Season 4. So, as I had mentioned at the end of my last battle video, it is Draft League time once again. For those of you who've been following me for any length of time, you will know we are very familiar with the Battle Hub Draft League. We've been participating in it for quite some time exclusively as our only draft league. As well, the last season of it, we were actually a commissioner. So I'm happy to report that we are returning for season 4, not only as a participant, but once again as a commissioner. So very excited about that. Today, I'm going to go over basically the layout of the league, what's changed since last season, go over my team that I drafted this season, and we'll look at our weekly opponents for the whole season and a whole bunch of other stuff league related. Yeah, definitely looking forward to getting into all of that with you guys. I am looking forward to a new season of the draft league here. Um, Obviously, last season we did very well, made it all the way to the semifinals once again, before once again being eliminated by the eventual winner. Yeah, definitely hoping to repeat that performance this season and continue to hopefully do well. Um, and of course, also have some fun along the way, have some great entertaining battles along the way, as well as is always the goal. Yeah, having said all of that, I am going to go ahead and get into the rules of this season. And the rules are going to be a little bit different this season, but largely the same. The basically the skeleton of the rule set is going to be pretty much the same. We do have 115 points this season to draft a team of 10 Pokemon. So that's a little bit different because we have a little bit more of a point cap this season to draft the Pokemon. Additionally, we are locked into being required to draft exactly 10 Pokemon this season versus before it was variable. You could kind of choose. There's a little bit of a choice as to exactly how many Pokemon you wanted to draft, but this time it has to be exactly 10. But the big change for the league this season is going to be in the form of the Terra system. You are going to have 16 points to select 2 to 3 Terra captains. That is kind of similar to the same thing as last season, except for it's a little bit less because this season only Pokemon with a point value of 9 or less are allowed to Terra. Um, Basically what that boils down to is you're able to draft more powerful Pokemon, but you are also incentivized to draft less powerful Pokemon, as those are the only ones that can be assigned as Terra Captains. Interesting rule dynamic here. I'm all for all of these rule changes. I think they're going to make the league quite interesting, shake things up a little bit. But the big change to our league this season is actually going to be in regards to Terra, in the form of the fact that we no longer have free Terra in this league. That was a big staple of the Battle Hub Draft League for the first 3 seasons. But no, this season they finally decided that it was time to do away with that. We do have what's called fixed Terra this season, which means that for each Terra captain that you get, you must assign 3 Terra types to that Pokemon, and you can only make it have one of those 3 Terra types. Now, you can use transactions to change that later on in the league, as I should probably mention, although it doesn't really factor in for me, or hasn't really factored in for me too much throughout these leagues, but you get to make 5 transactions for Pokemon and 3 Terra transactions throughout the season. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of the season as it stands. We are doing a 9 week season once again, as per the usual. And yeah, other than that, things are pretty. Oh, actually, there's another little rule change that I forgot to mention, and that, of course, is going to be that Pokemon will be set to level 100 this season versus set to level 50 in prior seasons. That's another change. But most of these changes, aside from the free Terra to fixed Terra change, most of the changes are just little things around the edges of the rules. But yeah, the free Terra to fixed Terra is really the big one, obviously. So, Having said all of that, I've wasted enough time. I will go ahead and keep things moving by introducing you guys to your season 4 BHDL for Philadelphia Pidgeys. So here they are on the screen, and no, I did not put the wrong graphic up. That is not a typo. That is not a mistake. You're not looking at the Season 3 graphic here, as you might think at first glance. No, this is the Season 4 Philadelphia Pidgeys. Very similar, I will say, to the Season 3 Philadelphia Pidgeys. So, we are nonetheless going to go through the team here. So, and as well, I will talk a little bit about my thought process behind what I did. So, first and foremost, I will say, obviously, as you guys can see, the first Pokemon that I drafted is, of course, once again going to be Sneasler. So, that is the same Pokemon that I opened with in the BHDL3. So, yeah, Sneasler is obviously a physical powerhouse, hits very hard. Great move pool, very fast, has the unburden capability, obviously, but also has other good abilities. Pretty wide move pool as well. So, an all around great Pokemon. So, I wanted to, as you would normally want to, kick the draft off with what I would refer to as an anchor Pokemon. So, something that you're going to build the team around, something that you're going to base your strategy around going forward with the draft, something that you can kind of count on as a win con in pretty much every game. And I went to Sneasler once again. Main reason for that is, to be completely honest with you guys, I got sniped. So I think I told you guys that last season in the draft, I uh, got pretty much everything I wanted and pretty much made the exact team that I wanted to make last season because I didn't get sniped one time throughout the drafting process. But this time, even though actually something I wanted to mention to you guys is I actually ended up in the number 3 position in the draft, which was the best position that I have ever been in a draft order. Unfortunately, the Pokemon that I wanted was selected as one of the first 2 before it got to me. So therefore, I was kind of left at a little bit of a loss. I wasn't 100% sure what to do, and so therefore I went back to the well. And decided to go back to what worked for me last season, that being the Sneasler. Now, I had a bunch of different ideas in my head for what I could have potentially wanted to draft, but at the end of the day, I just decided, you know what? Sneasler did so well for us last season. It carried us to the semifinals, obviously, alongside the rest of the team, but it really was the premier Pokemon that it is advertised as. It was great for me. Both unburdened and not unburdened sets put in a lot of work. So I decided, you know what, if there's one Pokemon that I have to choose to make my anchor of the team once again, we're going to go back to Sneasler. Um, so yeah, we went ahead and did that. Now, moving on to our second pick, I don't even have to tell you guys. You already know what it's going to be. For the 9th time in a row, 9 out of 9 draft leagues, we are going to draft in the number 2 position, the Goodra, of course, the de facto team captain of the Philadelphia Pidgeys. And of course, we decided to make it a Terra captain once again here, as it just barely sneaks in below the threshold for being able to Terra. So that is pretty awesome. I was a big fan of Goodra last season, specifically as a Terra Captain. Not that it hasn't put in work in the other seasons that I played of Draft League, but as a Terra Captain, Goodra really put a lot of work in, so I decided it was worth it. After a lot of debate, which I'll kind of get to in a second, I decided that it was worth it to go ahead and make Goodra a Terra Captain once again. And the 3 Terra types that I decided to start off with designating to it are going to be Fairy, Ground, and Water. So what that means is that I can bring either a Terra, Fairy, Ground, or Water Goodra to any of my games. My opponent will not know which one it is, but they will know it has to be one of those 3 types. My thought process behind picking these 3 Terra types for Goodra is quite simple. It all comes down to coverage and type matchups. So Terra Fairy is the first one. That's kind of a no-brainer, an obvious one. Gives it a very, very valuable dragon immunity, and also gives it a fairy attacking move, which is one of the very few types that Goodra does not learn an offensive move for, or a good offensive move for, is fairy. So um, that was kind of the logic behind that. Um, Additionally, I decided to go with ground just because, once again, it is one of those few types that Gudra really doesn't get a strong offensive move. I mean, it does get Earthquake, but Gudra is more often than not going to be a special attacker because its special attack is much higher than its physical attack. So it doesn't have a good special attacking ground move. So being a ground type is handy for that reason. In addition, it also uh, pairs nicely with Sap Sipper on Gudra, so it changes what would have been a grass weakness for a ground typing into an immunity. So that works out very well, leaving it with only two weaknesses as a ground type. And then, of course, last type I chose was water. Basically, for the same reason, water is a very strong type defensively. Water type plus Sap Sipper means that it will only have one weakness as a water type, so that of course is very handy as well. So yeah, Gudra did big things for us last season. I couldn't imagine not drafting it at this point. So yeah, definitely happy to go ahead and bring Gudra back to the team as well. But moving along to our round three pick, I was really looking for a steel type this round because obviously with having the mandatory Gudra on the Philadelphia Pidgeys, we need a very strong defensive steel type to pair well with Gudra. And unfortunately, once again, I ended up actually getting sniped on the steel type that I wanted. So I thought, you know what? I went back to the Sneasler for my round one pick. So we're going to go ahead and just go back to Scissor for our round three pick as our reliable, bulky steel type. Um, Obviously, I've used Scissor a lot over the years, a Pokemon that I'm very familiar with. Great priority, great utility, great typing, obviously, and very solid Pokemon. Can't go wrong with drafting a Scissor, obviously. Scissor came up pretty big for us last season. There were some games where it was a little bit of a liability, but for the most part, it was a great Pokemon to have. So definitely no hard feelings about bringing Scissor back. For one more season here with the Philadelphia Pidgeys. But moving on to our round four pick, at this point the team was looking very familiar, obviously. So I was like, you know what? I might as well at this point. I want to keep the defensive synergy going that I had last season, and as I want to just state at this point that this was not my plan, guys. So when I was going into this draft, it was fully not my plan to draft so many of the same Pokemon that I had drafted last season. But once I started going down that road, I kind of got to a point, especially with this round four pick, where I was like, you know what, I could really use a bulky water type. For the team, and having that electric typing as well would be nice. So, of course, we decided to go ahead and bring back Rotom Wash once again. Obviously, very, very solid Pokemon. Pretty respectable defensively and offensively. Great typing. And then, of course, good coverage and move pool and all that stuff. So, Rotom Wash was another Pokemon that came up big for us last season. It formed a very, very strong defensive core, which I'll once I get to the last Pokemon in that defensive core, I will kind of talk about it as a whole. But yeah, Rotom is a pivotal part, pun intended, of that defensive core for this team, as it was last season, as I hope it will be this season. Um, but moving along to our number five pick, now things are going to start to look just a little bit different because at this point, the Pokemon that I had drafted number five last season had already been drafted, even though I'm not 100% sure if I would have wanted to bring that on again anyway, just because this season I wanted to go with a little bit more of a premier terrain setter than what I had last season. So obviously we all know the premier thing Sneasler can do is the Unburden set, and obviously having a Pokemon that can set a terrain as its ability is a very, very strong pairing with the Sneasler. So I wanted a Pokemon in this position number five here that could be a very reliable terrain setter, and so I decided this time to go with the Indeedee, specifically male Indeedee, as they are actually separated in the draft since they have a little bit different stat distributions and move pools. And the Indeedee male actually costs a little bit more because of it is more of the offensive one, versus Indeedee female is a more defensive Pokemon. But I decided to go with Indeedee Male specifically because not only is it very strong offensively, but it also can set the psychic terrain. So That's going to be a key synergistic thing for me to pair with the Sneasler, obviously, to go ahead and try to use that on Burden on the weeks where I decide to bring that set on Sneasler. It's definitely more of a reliable terrain setter than other Pokemon, other options that I had. There were some other ones that had been taken already, and there were other ones that I used last season that I technically could have drafted again, but I wanted to do something a little different. And like I said, I wanted a little bit more of a premier terrain setter than what I had last season. So I was like, you know what? I'll go ahead and give Indeedee Mail a shot. I've never drafted it before, but I figured it would pair very well. The Psychic Terrain also does block priority, which is a premier thing that it can do. So it will, if I can pop that combo off with Sneasler, it will give Sneasler hypothetically more longevity just due to the fact that you can't use a priority move on it, which is pretty much the premier way to counter the unburdened Sneasler. Is if it's chipped and you have strong priority to try and take it out, because with unburdened active it will outspeed just about anything, and with an attack boost, if we can get it an attack boost, it should hopefully be one or two shotting everything as well. Um, so yeah, that was the main reason for Indeedee. But Indeedee is pretty respectable in its own right as well. Has decent speed, decent special attack, and can certainly go the distance on its own as well. Very heavily considered making Indeedee one of my Terra captains, but as I'll explain at the end, I kind of decided against that for a couple of reasons. So moving along to our number 6 pick, we are back to the familiarity here with a Pokemon I have come to call the Captain's Trusty Steed. That is none other than Mudsdale. So, the reason I grabbed Mudsdale here is kind of something that I started to allude to before, and that is the fact that alongside Gudra, Rotom Wash, and Scissor, Mudsdale forms a very, very strong defensive core with those three Pokemon. So last season, I brought those four Pokemon to a lot of games alongside of each other, and they complemented each other very well. They cover each other's weaknesses very well, and they all do different things. There's strong pivots there. There's utility there. There's hazard setting there. There's bulk. There's power. Pretty much everything outside of speed covered by those four Pokemon. So I figured, you know what, I really like Mudsdale. I was a big fan of the performance that it has put forth the last couple of seasons because I've had it since the BHDL 2. Um, and I thought, you know what, we're going to go ahead and keep it rolling, and we're going to complete that four Pokemon defensive core from last season and bring the Mudsdale back this season. But this season, I also elected to make it a Terra Captain. So the main reason I did this is because I wanted to have one physical and one special Terra Captain. I've had situations where I have two of one, none of the other. And to be honest with you guys, that doesn't really particularly work out well for me most of the time. And so I thought, you know what, of all the Pokemon on this team that can become Terra Captains, Mudsdale is actually the only physical attacker amongst them. So that is why I wanted to make Mudsdale a Terra Captain. And so, as you can see, the types I chose for it to be able to Terra into are going to be Fighting, Water, and Steel. So, the thought process here basically is Steel is going to be one of the better ones as it cancels out most of Mudsdale's resistances. And gives it, or I should say, cancels out most of its weaknesses and gives it a ton of resistances to go with the stamina set if I wanted to use that. And also gives stab steel moves, which could be valuable. Water I chose for kind of the same reason because water cancels out most of Mudsdale's weaknesses, and then could potentially give it a handy stab option in a water type attack if need be. And then finally, the fighting type, obviously, once again, from a defensive standpoint, not super useful, but from an offensive standpoint, giving those stab fighting moves could be helpful. And then just, obviously the quick type change could be as well. So I just felt like it was a handy option for Mudsdale to have to be able to Terra this season. And so, yeah, we'll see how it works out. I've been very happy with Mudsdale the past couple of seasons here in the BHDL, so hopefully I can keep that rolling here with it this season. But moving along, that is going to bring us to our round 7 pick here. And once again, a familiar face, although not a Pokemon I used last season. This is going to be a callback to the BHDL2, actually, the darkest hour for the Philadelphia Pidgeys. Hopefully, we won't repeat the performance of that season. Um, but we went ahead and decided to bring Grimmsnarl back to the team. So, reason for this was at this point I did have quite a few points left in the old stockpile and to use to draft with, and I wanted a strong fairy type on the team at this point. And also, I was thinking I wanted something that could do some utility as well. And Grimmsnarl really fit the bill. Very strong fairy type. Hits deceptively hard actually on the physical side, but also it has that prankster, so that gives it priority to all status moves. So you have prankster pivots, you have prankster screens, you have prankster status moves, of all sorts with Grimmsnarl. But the typing is useful, and like I said, it also hits deceptively hard on the physical side too. So I can definitely see quite a few options with Grimmsnarl. I had it in the BHDL too, but I didn't really get much of a chance to use it because I did not draft it on the initial BHDL2 Philadelphia Pidgeys. It was something that I transacted for about halfway through the season, I want to say, and the season was pretty much screwed at that point anyway, and there were only a handful of games that I played with it, actually less than that. So I didn't really get too much of a chance to use it, or use it to its full potential, rather. Um, so I'm interested to see what I can make it do this season. I'm hoping I can bring it to some games, and I hope I can get it to do something positive for the team this time around. Um, but that's going to go ahead and feed us into our round 8 pick. And at this point, I was thinking, I could use another form of hazard removal because I already have the scissor with defog, but I wanted something else that could remove hazards in case it's a week where scissor is very, very suboptimal to bring, but I still need hazard removal. Because that was one of the things that the BHDL3 Philadelphia Pidgeys lacked, was that scissor was the only hazard clearer on the team, so I wanted at least one more hazard removal option on this team. And so I decided to go ahead and, for the first time ever, draft Drifblim. So Drifblim is an interesting one. It is a very bulky Pokemon. Hits decently hard on the special side as well if it has the Flare Boost set. Also, another potential Unburden user alongside Sneasler to pair with Indeedee. But additionally, it also has that Ghost typing, which is very handy as well, in the flying too. Those are types that I was kind of lacking and thought would be pretty handy to move forward with the team. So a lot of utility on Drifblim and a lot of potential with Drifblim. So I'm hoping to make Drifblim do something for me this season. We'll see what we can make it do. But yeah, I thought it was a good addition to the team for those reasons. So, but that is going to feed us into our round 9 pickup. So at this point, I was very kind of unsure about how I wanted to round the team off here. One thing that I did notice was that I did have a couple of weaknesses that I wanted to shore up on the team, and I thought a fire type would be a good way to do it. So I was looking into fire types. I still had quite a few points left because for those of you who don't know, I'm really more of a lower tier player. I'm not much of an OU player by nature. I just enjoy playing the lower tiers, like the mid to lower tiers. So those are the Pokemon I'm more familiar with, more comfortable with, and so that those are the ones that I end up drafting earlier a lot of times. So when it gets to toward the end of the draft, a lot of times I have a lot of points left over, and that was the case at this point as well. So I had a lot of points and I wanted a strong fire type. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something that I've only ever done, I think, once before, and that's draft a Pokemon that I have never used before, technically. And I say technically because we decided to pick up for the ninth round the Hisuian Arcanine. So, normal Arcanine, or Cantonian Arcanine, whatever you want to call it, is a Pokemon that I am very, very familiar with, actually. It's one that I've used extensively. I've drafted it numerous times as well. Big fan of it. But at the same time, Hisuian Arcanine is actually arguably better due to a couple of things that make it stronger. So it has obviously that secondary rock typing, which is a little bit of a hindrance defensively, but offensively adds so much power to Arcanine. It also has the Rockhead ability, so that's handy for taking 0 damage from moves that have recoil. And so, yeah, Hisuian Arcanine is just an absolute powerhouse of a Pokemon, and it's something that I picked up because I thought, you know what, we could use some more power on this team, but we could also use that Fire type for the defenses. And like I said, big fan of normal Arcanine, so I want to go ahead and see if we can use Hisuian Arcanine to just as or even greater effect here for the Philadelphia Pidgeys. But that will lead us to our 10th and final pick of the draft here. And so, with this last pickup, what I really wanted with the last pickup was something fast. Because at this point, I thought, you know what? We have some stuff that's decently fast, but aside from the Sneasler, we don't have anything that's like extremely fast on the team. So I wanted to grab something that was fast, and I also wanted something that was an alt to Indeedee. And what I mean by that is, I wanted a Pokemon that I could, if I decided I didn't want to use the Unburdened Sneasler set, something that I could swap Indeedee out for. I didn't want to be locked into bringing Indeedee every week because I feel like that would make the team too predictable. As a side note, that's actually one of the biggest reasons that I didn't make Indeedee a Terra Captain. Um, Off the cuff here is because I felt like if I made Indeedee a Terra Captain, that would make the team too predictable. It would incentivize me to just use Unburdened Sneasler every week and make the team too predictable. And additionally, I didn't really want to be locked into that. I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket, as they say. So with this 10th pick, I decided to go ahead and draft Azelf, a Pokemon who is quite fast and hits quite hard on both the physical and the special side. Um, so I feel like Azelf is a good pick. Obviously, it has some pretty valuable resistances and immunities with that Levitate, but also it gives me a handy option for something that I can use, like I said, instead of Indeedee if I don't want to use the Unburden on Sneasler. Makes the team a little more unpredictable, I think. And yeah, just overall a very solid Pokemon. It also has utility and it has a bunch of things that it can do. Obviously, I'm quite familiar with Azelf as well, though I've never drafted it before. This is the first time I've drafted it. Um, but yeah, looking forward to see what I can make that thing do this season as well. So there you have it, folks. That is the BHDL 4 Philadelphia Pidgeys. Kind of looks like a weird alternate universe version of the BHDL 3 Philadelphia Pidgeys, as many have said. Because not only do I have 5 of the 10 Pokemon here are the same ones, but we also have Grimmsnarl, which was a Pokemon from a prior season on the team, and then we have Hisuian Arcanine and Azelf, which are actually kind of just different versions of Pokemon, the normal Arcanine and the Mesprit Pokemon we've had in the past as well. So very very familiar team for us. Obviously, I'm hoping that will bode well for us because obviously we're comfortable with most of these Pokemon. Um, and yeah, hopefully we can still make something happen with it. Make have good games with them, still bring interesting and unpredictable sets with these, and more importantly, strong sets that will work out for us. Um, but yeah, very excited to use this team. Like I said, even despite that it is largely the same as the last season's team. Like I said, that's what happens when you get sniped so many times. Is you just end up kind of going back to the well, going back to what you know. And there is a saying, as the old saying goes, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." So yeah, hopefully we can do good with this team. Many have called it an upgrade to last season's Pidgeys. I think the jury's still out on that personally. I don't know if this version of the team is better than last season's Philadelphia Pidgeys. I know it's a little bit different. It's got a few differences to it. Um, but I don't know if that makes it better or not. I guess we'll find out. But yeah, there is the team, and happy to have them all on board, and can't wait to see what they do. But having said that, that is going to go ahead and feed us over to our schedule for this season. And so right here on the screen right now, you can see, once again, as I mentioned before, this is a 9-week regular season. So we do have 9 opponents, obviously, that we will be playing. Um, And as I look through this list of coaches, these are all players that we have played before at one point or another. So we start out with DeBest Not Really, a coach who we've played, I think, 3 times now. And I think we've played him every single season of the Battle Hub Draft League. So we're keeping the tradition alive and playing DeBest Not Really in the regular season for a fourth time here. In season 4. Very strong competitor. Then we have Stefan, a coach who I believe we faced just once. That was back in the BHDL. I want to say one, but I'm not 100% on that. It was either one or season 1 or 2 that we faced him. So we've only faced him once before. Um, then we've got the notorious HIM, or as some might say, the notorious HYM. Um, but he has we've actually played him 3 times as well, both in the league and free games. We've got Abomination, a coach who we've played a bunch of times over the years. In Scarlet and Violet, we've played him, I think, now like 5 or 6 times as well. So we've had so many games with that guy. Um, we've got Anastasia, the reigning BHDL champion. We've played her twice before, both last season. We've got RK9er, an individual we've played, I think, 3 times now, too, in the BHDL. We've got Scorpion, head of the BHDL. We've played him twice already as well. We've got Cobra, an individual we've just recently become acquainted with. Discord's rising star, as it were, someone who we've played just once now. And then, of course, last week we have none other than Viradu, also known as Biradu from the Discord server. Go ahead and join the Discord server. It's the best place to go for Pokemon Scholar and Viola and Scarleton Wi-Fi battles right now, in my humble opinion. Just couldn't resist myself. But there is a link in the description down below. Seriously, no, there's not. But yeah, Biradu is another coach we're very very familiar with. I think we've played him like 5 or 6 times too here in Scarlet and Violet. So every single one of these coaches, like I said, is a rematch. They're all very tough competitors. So I don't see one easy game in this lineup here. So it is going to be a hell of a season for us. It is going to be a hell of a fight every week. But we are here and we are going to try to make the most of it. And once again, if we can do good enough in some combination of these matches, we will hopefully secure once again a playoff spot. That is our ultimate hope and goal here in the BHDL 4. So, um, one question we have to answer before we do some closing thoughts is, what are we fighting for in the BHDL 4? So, unfortunately, we ran out of memes. We ran out of just puns and inside jokes to use for the BHDL4 prize. So I just whipped something up quick, and we're going to go with it. We are going to take a look at the BHDL Championship. So there we go. High quality video editing skills on display here, folks, as we ask ourselves the question, who will be our next BHDL champion? Obviously, we have current champion Anastasia, someone we play in the regular season. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting time, fun time, very competitive time once again here. But that is the goal at the end of the day. I always tell you guys, every time I enter a league, my minimum goal is to make it to the playoffs. But obviously, the top goal or the ideal would be to win. But obviously, in order to win, you first have to make playoffs. So, but we're gonna make a run at it, and we're gonna see what we can do. We're gonna see how far we can get or how close we can become to becoming the next BHDL champion. So, couple of closing thoughts here. Um, I am pretty interested, pretty excited for this season of Draft League once again here. Um, we just recently did the power rankings video for all the season 4 teams, and if it were possible, it seems that all the teams, all the coaches just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger with each passing season. It is a lot to keep up with, I will say that, but I am ready to tackle the challenge here, I will say, on behalf of the Philadelphia Pidgeys. um, I am hoping for the best this season. I am going to try my best as I always do, and hopefully I will not disappoint. Hopefully we can get some very fun and entertaining games out of this season, and hopefully successful ones as well. Hopefully we can make it back to the playoffs again, and hopefully see how far we can get with that. But yeah, the competition level in this league just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. I will say so. We're gonna have to be at the top of our game if we want to make it happen this season. That's for sure. And like I said, the schedule is going to be an uphill battle as well. That's for sure because there is not one week that we can take for granted this season. Not that there ever was before, um, but certainly this season there's not one week we can take for granted. But I am looking forward to this season. One other thing that I want to mention quickly to you guys is one thing you're going to see from me this season is I'm going to replace what I was doing last season with the weekly recap and preview videos with something better, something more upgraded. So, what I'm going to do is I will debut after week one. A new limited series of videos for the league. It is going to be called the Captain's Recap, and it is basically going to be the same concept as the weekly recap and preview video, except I am not only just going to be looking at my match, but I'm going to be looking at every single match that happened during that week of the league. And I will not be alone in doing that. I will be joined each week by a different guest. That is my hope, anyway, that we can go ahead and analyze game results and just talk about the league matches and have a good time. So that is going to be coming this season for you guys, the Captain's Recap. So yeah, I hope you guys will be excited about that and interested in watching it. And yeah, you'll get those in between the weekly battle videos, as those will be the majority of the content here on the channel for the season while season 4 plays out here. So I hope you guys will stay tuned for that and be interested in that. Coming up quite soon, actually, we are going to be getting right into week one here in the league. So we're going to have our week one game coming sooner rather than later for you guys as well. So yeah, we are back in league mode here and just hoping to do our best and make it as far as we can and entertain you guys along the way. So, that's pretty much it for this one. Thanks for watching again, everyone. Hope you all enjoyed. Please hit that like button, leave a comment, and or subscribe if you did enjoy, and stay tuned for more new videos in the future. Stay tuned for the weekly league games and the weekly captain's recap videos coming soon. So, that's it, and we'll see you next time.